everybody. I'm Nick Fountain. I'm the chair of the Certificate of Appropriateness Committee of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission, and I'm calling to order the January meeting of the committee. And there are a number of things that I will need to say before we get going. First of all, we're doing this meeting remote, as we have been doing for the last several months. The COA committee is a quasi-judicial body governed by the general statutes and ordinance. We are the people who do hearings on the COA applications. I need to cover a few things before we get going. Those of you that have been here several times will have heard this before. First of all, we have statutes in Session Law 2020-3 allowing for remote meetings under the current declaration of emergency, i.e. the pandemic. Secondly, everybody was given notice that this meeting would be using a remote electronic platform. Everyone who will be speaking today has consented to have the committee use this remote platform in order to move matters forward. We will also, before each matter, make sure that everybody has agreed, and we will be administering the oath remotely as well. A notice of the meeting has been provided to the applicants in many ways. Everyone within 100 feet was provided notice. Signs were posted on the properties, and notices have been provided in the newspapers as well. And in addition, anyone who wanted to participate was required to sign up for the meeting in order to participate and speak. Information about how to do that has been provided as well. I noticed that today there are no speakers signed up other than the applicants. Everyone who had an application was required to submit all of their supporting material in advance. All of that has been posted for the committee, and a person can examine that by going to raleighnc.gov/agendas and get to the RHDC Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. In addition, everyone who is going to speak was provided an oath and previous to the meeting, and they will have signed and returned that oath, but it will be administering the oath remotely once we get going here. So those are the preliminaries, and with that, I'll ask Tanya or staff to call the roll, and everyone watching will be able to see who answers to each name.
Nick Fountain.
Well, that's me, and I'm here.
Vershay Height is excused. Harold Millette is excused. Janine McAuliffe.
I'm here.
John Reese.
I'm here.
Ian Dunn.
Here.
Travis Bailey. Oh, couldn't hear that, but I saw your mouth move.
I'm here.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. First of all, we will need to approve the agenda, and before we do so, I'll need to find out if any of you want to have the summary proceedings heard as a plenary matter rather than summarily. There are two such matters. One is 521 Elm Street, Lisa Finaldi, Brian Starkey, and the second one is 519 Polk Street, Curtis Castine. Does anybody on the committee or on this call wish to have either of those matters heard other than as a summary proceeding? Hearing none, I will call for a motion to approve the agenda, and Janine McAuliffe makes that motion. John Reese seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. I see all the hands go up, and I vote aye as well. The motion carries. And I note that there were 7 minor works last month, but the next matter is to approve the minutes of the December meeting. Have you all had opportunity to look at the various findings and the material in those minutes? Any questions concerning the minutes of the last meeting? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. John Reese moves to approve. Ian Dunn seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye and raise your hand. That motion carries unanimously as well. I vote aye also. So now we'll come to the summary proceedings, and the first one is well, I think I skipped introducing everyone and having an opportunity for everyone to say who they are and why they are on this committee or what skill set they bring. And I will start out by saying that I'm Nick Fountain. I'm a lawyer. I live in a Raleigh historic landmark, and I currently serve as chair of this committee. And I'll now call on Ian Dunn to do the same.
Hi, I'm Ian Dunn. I'm a Raleigh historian and work at the State Archives of North Carolina.
Janine McCullough.
Hi, I'm Janine McAuliffe. My background is in architecture. I've been a residential designer here in Raleigh for the last 20 years.
John Reese.
My name is John Reese. I am an architect here in Raleigh. I live in the Glenwood, Brooklyn neighborhood. There we go.
Thank you for that. Travis Bailey.
Travis Bailey, born and raised in Raleigh. I live in the Boylan Heights neighborhood.
Thank you, Travis. And folks, the other face you see on the screen is Raz Raspberry, who is an attorney with the Colley Pridgeon Law Firm and a retired assistant city attorney. And he is the person who does all he can to keep us straight. And so with that, we'll get back to the agenda and the summary proceedings. With regard to 521 Elm Street, I'd entertain a motion to accept the findings of staff as the findings of fact, and also a motion to approve the issue of the COA in accordance therewith. Is there someone to make that motion? Janine McAuliffe makes that motion, and John Reese seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve as to 521 Elm Street, signify by saying aye and raising your right hand. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Travis. And we will now, and so that is carried, and that matter is concluded. And Ms. Finaldi, Mr. Starkey, you will be dealing with staff from here forward. You have spent all the time with us that you're going to have to spend today. The next matter is Curtis Cashbang and the matter of 1 Ginkgo tree at 519 Polk Street. I'd entertain a motion to accept the staff's findings as the findings of this committee and their proposed action of approval as action of the committee as well. Is there that motion? Ian Dunn makes that motion. John Reese seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. All right. The motion carries, and that matter is approved. And Curtis, at some point, I need to get an email from you and find out do you have an interest in ever being a member of the COA committee again, because I've got on my nomination committee hat. So we won't hear from you on that point right now, but at some point email me and let me know if you have such an interest. So that takes care of that matter, folks. We'll now move to the evidentiary hearings, and I remind everyone that we'll be making findings of fact on these, and we'll be therefore dealing with those by sworn testimony, and we will need to administer the oath to everyone who's going to speak on the matter. The first one is
excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I need to bring up, I would need to be abstain from voting in this hearing due to my friendship with the applicants.
All right, we will, therefore, that's a request to recuse, and I will entertain a motion that Travis Bailey be permitted to recuse from participating in this matter, and Janine McAuliffe makes that motion. Ian Dunn seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. All right, the motion carries, and so Travis will not participate and will not indicate with rolling their eyes or otherwise what we ought to be doing on this matter. So now we'll get back to Laurie Jackson and Colette Canane, and I'll administer the oath to each of you. Do you and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter being heard will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Laurie Jackson?
I do.
And Colette Canane?
This is Colette. I do. And Nick, I believe there are also the two property owners signed up to speak.
They were not on my list, but that's great. Who are they?
Sarah Shepard and Jeff Shepard.
Okay, that's great. Well, Ms. Shepard, I'm going to ask the same of you. You and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter being heard will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If so, say I do. And I didn't catch the first names, but Ms. Shepard?
I do.
At this point, you say I do.
I do.
I hear that, but it's very soft, I might add. Mr. Shepard?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, Colette, would you please explain this proposal to us?
Yes, wait one moment while the presentation loads. So this application is COA 0081-2020, 308 South Boylan Avenue. It is in the Boylan Heights Historic District and is also a Raleigh Historic Landmark, the Boylan Mansion. This is part of an application that you heard in, I believe it was June of last year. One component, the installation of signage, was deferred. Next slide. So this is a view of the property from Boylan Avenue. Next slide. And this is a view from the Montford and Boylan intersection looking towards the property. Next slide. So the applicants requested to appear on this agenda, but no materials were received prior to being able to write a staff report. So staff did not make a suggestion because of that. New materials have been provided. Next slide. Since the agenda was posted, and that included sign drawings and mock-up photographs, which were posted on Monday for your review. And that's all I have.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on Laurie Jackson to discuss their proposal with regard to this sign that was deferred previously. And then Colette, after we hear from Laurie and have questions, I'll come back to you because I still would like to hear what staff has to say and what your thoughts might be in the absence of the report. And then we will decide as a committee whether we're going to go forward in the absence of our typical findings or not, given that this matter is not as, there are not as many issues since it's a single point. But we'll get to that momentarily. At this point, I want to call on Laurie Jackson to speak to us concerning the proposal, and I hope that everyone got into board docs and looked at the supplemental material that was posted. So, Laurie, what would you like to tell us about the sign, not about anything else? Okay.
I'll keep it to the sign. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. We appreciate the opportunity to bring our signage back to you. It has been several months since we brought this information before you, and based on the request for some additional details, primarily on how this signage is attached to the existing fence. There is an existing fence along Boylan Avenue, and we are building a new metal fence to match the existing that will run along Mountford Street. So I would just like to take the opportunity to briefly address the additional information we provided. There are shop drawings from the fabricator. It includes details on the finish, the fasteners, the method of attachment to the existing fence and the new fence in the case of the Mountford Street signage. We've also provided some mock-up photos. What you are seeing is a 24-inch by 24-inch square mock-up. The one seen in the photos obviously is not metal, but just to give you a sense of the size and scale, what is seen in the photos is the proposed signage location off of Boylan Avenue. The additional signage location will be along the driveway apron on Mountford Street. Both signs will be identical. There will be no difference between the two locations. So what you're seeing in the photos is what is proposed for both the entry points on the site. We also included at staff recommendation some photos from a little bit further away. You see the signage from across the street, across Boylan. However, from the intersection of Mountford and Boylan, the signage is not visible. We did not include that in this information. So I just wanted to sort of quickly walk you through what we provided, and I'm happy to take any questions or give you any other information I might have. Thank you.
To the sign.
I'm sorry, Nick. I wasn't able to hear.
I'm sorry, maybe I got muted. I was going to say before we turn to questions from members of the committee, I was just generally curious, what is the status of the overall project in terms of your timeline before we get back to this sign?
Sure. Well, part of the reason why we did not get this information into staff before, or rather after the time they would be able to prepare a staff report, is we are in the very last stages of the project. Things are starting to happen very fast. We are hoping to have a CO in early February. So getting this approval, is the next step in sort of telling the fabricator to get going and being able to manufacture and then install the signage around the time of the soft opening, which should be in February. And I hope that's okay to share that information. We're very excited and very close at this point.
Okay, well, I know you all are excited about that, but we'll examine the sign now and think about that part of it. And to that end, I will call on members of the committee. Are there questions, comments from members of the committee at this point before I go back to Colette and get input? If we were going to deal with it today, we're going to have to remember what are the guidelines, what chapter and verse that we might want to cite as we think about that. But for now, let's. Do you all have questions, members of the committee, of the applicants? Okay. Are there questions from staff to the applicants or comments from staff? I hear none. Are there? And I'll give you another chance, Colette. But Mr. Shepherd, do you all want to say anything, or are you satisfied with what we're hearing so far?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Sorry, you've just got Jeff now. We also have a 10-month-old baby who has decided that she needs her mother. At this point, no. I'm also here to answer any questions that you all have from our standpoint or from the owner standpoint. Otherwise, Lori should be able to help with some of the technical details.
All right, that's great. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to come back to Colette now. And Colette, are there things that you think we need to know or understand, or and Tanya, are there things procedurally that you wish to express concern about in this matter, since we don't have a staff report?
Sure, this is Colette. I can, in looking at the staff report that was prepared, it was the July meeting. A few of the things that we noted, the signage was included as a component of the original application, so we did address that in the original staff report. Nothing was provided at that time, but generally we stated that the committee had not previously approved the installation of signage on a fence, and we drew attention to the fact that no evidence was provided to illustrate how the proposed signage is not incongruous with the character of Boylan Heights and the design guidelines. I think that those are likely the two most relevant facts that we included previously. We also noted that as Boylan Heights is predominantly residential in character, signage along the street is atypical.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. Members of the committee, at this point, I think what I would like to do is to go back to the applicant, to Laurie Jackson, and with regard to those two key points that staff has brought up with regard to signage on fences and the extent and how you would assess the conformity to the guidelines. Laurie Jackson.
Oh, yes, I am here. Thank you.
Okay. Did you hear my question?
I did. Thank you, Nick. In regards to there not being a precedent for signage on fences in this historic district, I think that, frankly, that's because there is not another commercial property within the district of this prominence or stature. I would note that Montford Hall, it is within the Boylan Heights Historic District. It is also individually a Raleigh Historic Landmark. It is located on the northern edge of the district. In terms of the district itself and also the zoning of this area, Boylan Heights is a residential zoning district, and just to the north, so south of the railroad tracks, that is all industrial from that point northward. So in terms of precedence, I think that our position would be there is not really a precedent for Montford Hall. Our intention was more to do something that was simple, that was not necessarily, it is signage, I guess. At the end of the day, it is advertising, but it's not advertising itself in the sense of, it's not on the building, partly because of the size of the lot and how far away someone on the sidewalk or in the public right-of-way would be from the house. Putting something on the building itself really was not an option. There is a Raleigh Historic Landmark plaque that is on that east or main elevation. But in addition to that, it seemed the best location in that it's far enough away. It is not detracting from in our opinion, from the context of the building or of the site for that matter, you can see in the photographs, there's quite a bit of, not even sure what to call it. There's transformers, multiple transformers. There's a lot of utilities in the right-of-way along Boylan Avenue and there at the corner. In some respects, this sign is not going to be very, very visible, mainly because of everything else that is already on the site. So again, this seemed to the owners and to us while we understand there isn't anything really to compare it to in the vicinity, we feel like it is a simple, streamlined, and sort of quiet representation of sort of the business that is now a part of Montfort Hall. So I think I'll leave it at that. If you want me to elaborate, I'm happy to. The only other thing that comes to mind is in terms of precedents. I know that there was a COA case, the historic house on Blunt Street, where signage was not permitted to be on the building. I believe now the signage. This is the Campbell Law School. I'm sure staff probably knows what I'm referencing. I can't think of the proper name, but that is, as I recall, that is an instance of signage on a fence. While it is in another historic district, that might be helpful in contextualizing this in some way. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I think you're calling attention to the pro bono or legal aid clinic aspect of the Campbell Law School, and I think that building is on the corner of Morgan and Blunt, if I recall correctly. It's not far from the federal courthouse. Okay, members of the committee, I would call your attention to guideline sections 1.8, and more specifically, I think we should have a look at 0.2, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, and 0.8, and see how they might apply to this matter. Are there questions, comments from members of the committee? Do members of the committee want to ask the applicant anything else or ask anything else of staff? Otherwise, I will close the public hearing and we will talk about what to do procedurally and substantively with this matter. Okay, let's see, Janine.
Thank you. I had a question for Lori. Did you explore, and if you did, sort of tell me sort of why you went with this solution, an opportunity to have a sign that was not mounted to the fence, but still sort of at that street edge? Maybe it was in the ground.
Well, so we did sort of go down that path because that fence along Boylan is existing. There's not a lot of room between the fence and the public right-of-way, where I don't believe we would be permitted to install signage. So the alternative to that would be inside the fence. And when we sort of, I don't know if you all had the chance to go by there, but you can see our contractor, Greg Paul, has a very large sign in the yard, in the main body of the yard. And to be honest, that does not seem appropriate to us. So it was sort of the balance of, do you put something right next to the fence? Do you pull it back and then it is now commanding much more of sort of the space and attention that, to be honest, we aren't trying to, we don't want to take away from what is the main event, which really is the building. So, so we did, like I said, we did kind of go down that road, but to be honest, we've ended up here because it seems like the most contextual and sensitive place for signage such as this.
John Reese, I think you had a question a minute ago.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if y'all were going to light this in some way, or if it was maybe enough that's a bad thing, or out of context thing. But if so, if it's going to be in the ground, what is there any lighting at all?
Well, that is a good question. You know, if I had my way, yes, there probably would be some sort of lighting, but there is no plans for that at this point. There is a low voltage lighting layout that was approved as part of the master landscape COA plan. The signage, this, you know, we're sort of, this was, the signage location was not incorporated into that lighting layout. So as of now, no, there is no plan to light these signs.
If you do decide to light it, just reference 1.8.10, which, given what your description is for the low voltage, that doesn't seem to be out of compatibility with that guideline.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Further questions and comments? I guess I would say that if you tried to put the sign outside the fence, in addition to the right-of-way issues, I'd be concerned with vandalism and the ability to keep it there safely, and tripping hazards and all the rest. So there are, and also I think if we move, depending on how we move here, in this particular location, signage on the facade of the building, because of the setback, is not workable, not feasible, not useful. Because even though it may be that we have the National Register plaque or something, or the Raleigh landmark up there on the building, I doubt that anybody on the sidewalk will know if it's there or not. And so that I would note that is a reality. We can probably think of a lot of reasons why this is not precedent setting, depending on what you want to do with it. Are there other questions and comments from members of the committee? Janine McCullough.
Thank you. Again, my comments are that I feel as though with the nature of this being commercial, and I'm looking at the guidelines, that I don't think this seems out of place with the scale of this site and the siting of the house. My comment that I can't speak to, and I wonder if maybe staff can comment, is really the only concern on my mind is just the size of it, because at first glance it just seems very large. And then I really appreciate that somebody held that sign up in those images, because that's a big help, but still I can't go by to kind of experience that myself. And I wondered if maybe that would be something staff could speak to as far as the scale of the sign. And I think I heard there's going to be two, which I think that's what the presentation said, which was not something I understood from the application. So maybe you can clarify that.
First of all, I think there was supposed to be one on each street, one near the driveway off Mountford and one out on Boylan in an area, I guess it's somewhere close to the gate at the front walk, was what I was getting from it. I'll turn to staff. Colette, Tanya, do you all want to, well, I don't think I swore in Tanya, but anyway, Colette, if you want to comment here with regard to the size of the sign and any concern you may have in that regard, and maybe thinking of it as you might think of of a commercial site?
Well, the guidelines state that new signs should be usually written with simple design. And as a committee, since you have not previously approved the installation of signage on a fence, I'm not sure how much I could say about the proposed size.
Tanya here. I don't think I need to be sworn for this. I do not believe that there, I think if staff had written a staff report based on what was received, it would be to defer for additional information because there's not enough information to really get a sense of scale in order to render a suggestion.
Nick, can I follow up on that?
Sure, yeah, I would want to hear what your thoughts are, Laurie.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to just, in terms of scale, just reference the drawings that were provided by the fabricator installer with the dimensions. So 24 by 24 with a total, or if we're looking at the back, rather, it's 26 by 26 with the mounting plate. And I would just like to say that if the guidance we are getting is that this needs to be smaller, we are happy to work with staff with any additional information that needs to be submitted. Our goal would be to not defer again, but obviously with the understanding that if you all don't have enough information to make a decision, then we will provide whatever else is needed. Our hope is that we have provided enough that we can continue to move forward.
All right, thank you for that. Are there further comments or questions? John Reese?
Lori, what's the height of that fence?
The fence is 5 feet tall, and the grade varies along Boylan, and then as the fence turns and runs east-west along Mountford Street. But that is the existing fence height, and we have matched. There was originally a chain link fence along Mountford that has been removed, and we have matched the existing metal fence on that side as well.
All right.
The reason I asked the question is that given the proportion of that height relative to a 2 foot by 2 foot in a 5 foot height fence, I mean, if I did that calculation in my head, I think that would kind of be a good proportion for that sign size to be based on kind of a golden section diagram.
Okay.
We would, to be totally honest, it seems, and I appreciate that, Mr. Reese. I think it could get a little smaller. We would be happy to propose a 20 by 20 version. So that would be 20 by 20 for the actual plate, 22 by 22 from the back, which would include the steel backer plate, if that is a little bit more palatable to the committee.
All right.
Actually, your numbers are more precise than mine. I was giving you a little bit of leeway there, but actually, a 20 by 20 is right on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Are there other questions or comments? Ian Dunn, do you have anything you want to say?
I'll echo what John said. I pulled up the Google Street View image for the Boylan House, and having had that image, the image that they sent us in our mind, sort of imagined it on the fence, and it didn't seem too big to me. It seemed pretty fine to me.
Any other comment? What are your thoughts with respect to proceeding, or we have a couple of choices. We can proceed and specify that it not exceed 20 inch. We could indicate that we'll approve it in concept and have the detail and the size worked out in proportion with staff, I suppose. And we can, or we can defer the matter entirely. And so I'm interested in your thoughts in that connection as well. Janine McCullough.
My take is that I think, to me, it's just finalizing kind of the right sign, and I may be in the minority here, but just because I'm looking at these fabricating drawings and the pictures, I feel it's just a little unusually big to me. And I would definitely want to involve staff in kind of confirming the right size for that if we made that the condition of approval.
All right, thank you for that. Let's try, or does one of you want to try a motion, and then the rest of us will add facts, particularly as it relates to areas that might distinguish this and make it non-precedent setting for our purposes. John Reese, you had your hand up.
I move that we approve this application based on the applicant and the staff comments and information in this hearing, based on guidelines 1.8, sections 1 through 10 or 1 through 11, with the friendly amendment that we consider sizing no bigger than a dimension as determined by size and proportion based on staff staff work with the applicant.
Well, let me, we may have to clean that up a little bit. Is there a second to that motion for purposes of discussion? All right, Ian seconds the motion. I think that now for discussion, I think that we need to include, based on the following facts, that one, the property is adjacent to commercial properties. One, that it is that the size of the property is unique in contrast to all other properties in Boylan Heights. That the setback of the structure from the road is such that that signage on the structure will not work in contrast to downtown commercial properties, and that signage behind the fence it isn't functional to communicate the message. And all in all, the signage on the fence itself is less obtrusive than any other place it could be put. Those would be my comments. Are there other comments that ought to be made, Janine McCullough?
I think we said too that there wasn't really space in front of that fence to accommodate a ground sign very easily.
And I guess you mean in consideration of where the public right of way is.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Now then, so based on, does everybody understand that motion with the various comments and additional findings that we've added? Okay. Now, with regard I would propose an amendment that the precise dimension of the sign be worked out with staff, but not to exceed 20 by 20. And then they can see what the proportions need to be. But the main concern we've had is that there are a number of folks thinking 24 may be a little much. Is that amendment acceptable? I see two of you nodding. Everyone's accepting that. All right. With that in mind, now are you prepared to vote? Are there any further discussion? If not, I'll call all in favor of that motion as crafted and amended, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. All right, the motion carries unanimously. And John, the follow-up to that is after making that finding, that we say that the COA for the sign be issued as the secondary motion, and I take it you make that motion. And Janine McAuliffe seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. All right, the motion carries unanimously, and y'all will be able to move forward from there. And so thank you all for coming. And Mr. Shepherd, we appreciate all you're doing, and hope that you're bringing this online just about time the pandemic finally broke, and that and you'll be in some sense relieved you didn't open a year ago. So with that, we'll move to COA 150.
Thank you.
Okay, you're certainly welcome. 416 South Boylan, case number 150-2020. Meg McLaurin, I hope you've got your connection there straight now, and I would ask that Meg and Aaron be sworn at this time, and I will administer the oath now. Do you and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to the members of the board and the matter being heard will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Aaron Morton?
I do.
Meg McLaurin?
I do.
All right, thank you for that. Now, let's see. Aaron, if you will catch us up to speed on this one here. I know that we welcome Travis Bailey back and appreciative of him bringing the additional talent with him. So if y'all will explain this, because I know that we've had it before, but I gather we have all new material.
Yes, just to make things clear for the committee. So this is COA case 150-2020 for 416 South Boylan Avenue in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The work request is to construct a rear two-story addition, alter historic addition, construct rear deck, remove driveway, construct rear parking area, alter siding, alter porch columns, alter front door surround, replace roofing, change exterior paint colors. Well, Tanya, is this the January presentation? Install solar panels, which has been removed from the application, and install lighting. I apologize if we uploaded an old staff presentation. Next slide. So you've all seen this series of photographs before. This is a view of the front facade from South Boylan Avenue. You can see some 1970s alterations to the front porch with that brick facade and iron columns. Next. And that has been removed for exploratory demolition to expose the original wood siding. So that should be what you see in the remainder of the photographs. Next. And we're circling around the house now. Next, you can see the existing driveway here that will be removed. The original two-story section and early one-story section to the rear. Next. The rear of the house from the alleyway. Next. And the non-original porch and addition on the rear. Next. and heading back to the front of the house, you can see a piece of the front porch extends beyond the plane of the house. This is a new piece of the application requested to be removed. Next. So staff suggestion is to discuss the proposed increase in built area and built mass to determine if it is substantial and to approve with conditions. Next. The applicant has provided new information for this meeting. In addition to the new drawing set that you were provided previously, which includes the existing site survey, plans and elevations, highlighting the design alterations from the initial COA submission, corrected comparative mass examples, so the color-coded table and rounding of percentages to make that easier to read, and a proposed foundation plan. Next. And that's all. So to reiterate, the solar panels are no longer a part of the application, and the removal of a partial piece of the front porch, which the applicant has stated was a part of that 1970s alteration to restore it back to the original front porch configuration, has been added.
All right, thank you. Now, Meg, if you could just sort of succinctly bullet points with the changes that you made so that because we were all pretty familiar with this project at this point, and let us see where we are now, and particularly walk us through your calculations on mass, et cetera.
Oh, well, I'm going to be the first to admit that this is not my medium for conducting business. And the fact that I took me a half an hour to get into this meeting and I'm doing it off of my phone is just further testament that this is not an easy way for me to do this. But I did submit some supplemental materials that I don't know if those are going to be shown or not. I was sort of anticipating that they would be shown at this meeting.
Meg, this is Erin. I actually forgot you do have an applicant presentation prepared if the committee would care to hear it.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear that presentation. If y'all can load that.
Well, it's not much, but I thought that, okay, so here is the initial site plan that we've got. And as you can see, the driveway starts on the neighbor's property, and it's within a 1.3 feet of the southern property. So we have a lot of problems with this building already. And then, okay, next one. These are more the things that you have seen before, a comparison of what is there and what we are hoping to do. Now, I admit that, you know, because we're getting historic credit, or we're trying to get historic tax credit, and the rules are quite different for tax credit, where we are allowed everything that's existing to count for our space. So there's been a little confusion about that, but let's see. So the next slide, I guess, is the one where, and you probably have seen that one enough. What you haven't seen is that we are taking off some of that front porch. And I guess that's the only thing that's new in that drawing that you haven't seen before. Okay. This is what we proposed the first time that we came to meet like this. And the next drawing is what we have reduced that volume to. And the very black lines show what we have taken out. However, I have since been told that the owner would like to reinstall some of the parking in the back. I had taken it out because although it's a long, skinny site, the fact that it looked like it was going from one end to the other seemed to be a stumbling block for everybody. So I proposed we remove the parking in the back, and but the owner has told me that she would like it. I don't know if I have to get a separate application in for that. It did not have, that item was not ever a point of contention in any previous discussions as far as I was concerned. So I'm just putting that on the table to see if there's a possibility of sneaking some of that back in. Okay, next slide. And the next ones I did were just to show you the volumes and what, because when you look at an elevation drawing and unless you have the previous drawing, I don't think you can tell how much we have taken off to get this mass down to less than significant, although I realize significant is kind of a subjective term. These dark areas are the areas that we have removed from the initial application. Okay? And it's probably most significant there on the back where we had a mudroom on the back. Part of this is just my background and that, additions almost or often help pay for a whole house remodel by, adding square footage, but apparently that's not a tool I can use in the historic district. So, it's not going to justify the cost of the addition or the whole house remodel, and but that is the amount we took off. And I thought that since you had been so adamant about it being a significant addition, this is my significant reduction of that addition. Okay, what's next? And these are just more of the same from different areas, like what we took off. The other one should be. Okay. And one of the exercises I was asked to do was to find properties in Boylan Heights. I only had to find 3, but I got kind of carried away, and I found 10. And these properties are all have significantly more mass or about the same mass. Ours is the one in red. The chart that I think follows this, I think the ones in green, in the bright green, are all have more mass per lot size, and the ones in the sort of turquoise might be borderline, but over 50%. And I did not do the calculation myself because we disagree on a couple things, like where to start on the calculation. So I let Aaron, who volunteered to do the calculations, do them, although I contend that our addition is only, I had so much trouble getting into this meeting, I lost all my notes, but instead it was 2% less than what she thinks it is, because I think I should be able to claim, even though it was a really bad addition. I think there are other equally let's see. I think there are other additions in Boylan Heights that just aren't so bad that you know they're an addition. And so the question of whether it's really a 44% coverage or 42% coverage has to do with whether the second edition, which I think dates to 1968, can be included in the existing proposed built mass. That would take our increase from 11% down to 8%. I know this is kind of boring, but anyway, all right. So we did do those calculations, or Aaron did those calculations. I feel like they're, I'm contesting the part about the not being able to include existing, but that's okay. I'm not going to dwell on that. And the thing that the next slide, which well, you can leave that one there as long as you want, but that's just showing that there, how many are more than that. This particular slide, and maybe it's not a slide, is because there is no footing. The part that's shaded light gray is the part that is allowed historic tax credit from the SHPO. The fact that I am trying to put the structure on the sidewalls rather than put it on the existing rear wall is because there is no footing under this building. So I am creating new footings, and I am spanning, well, I think you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to go outside the existing footing / non-footing to have a place to anchor this new structure, the second story of this structure, without relying on the existing footings which are not there. So that's what I'm trying to do. The first floor is there. It is, we are going outside it by 1.5 feet on the north side. We're going inside it to where the original footprint was. It has been added on to over the years, but we are trying to get the structure not to put any additional load on the existing building. And this is this is maybe not the only way to do it, but this is the way that I chose to do it and to have it work with the plan. So that is why I included this drawing. It's not really a plan of the, it's not the structural plan so much as just a structural schematic of why I tried to go outside the existing footing on the north side. All right. Now this application, this particular application really started as, well, no, the application for this meeting started as just an application to reduce the size of the front porch. But because the other application was deferred, now they're all rolled into one application. So I have redone the application to have it be this entirety, including the porch reduction. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. I know there is a ton of information in there because you have to, I mean, I looked at it myself and there's all 3 applications in there. But I think we have done what we had been asked to do and kind of hope that we can move on.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you do, Meg. Thank you for that.
Oh, wait a minute. I expect I have 3 things going here because I've got YouTube on one computer and my phone is how I have to talk to you. So sorry. And there's a big delay between the 2. So sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to inquire of staff with respect to the parking. How does parking or absence of parking tie into these calculations? Can you clarify that for me, Aaron?
Sure.
Because we're not directly talking about an impervious surface calculation, but I need to know how we're supposed to consider parking.
Sure.
On the one hand, if there's none, you suspect that ultimately there's going to have to be some, so that would be another application, and the applicant's talking about sort of putting that back in, and so I need a little guidance on how to handle the parking aspect of this application.
Okay, sure. So at one point, I did know what the square footage of the proposed rear parking was. I would need that number and to plug it in to try to figure out what the difference in the proposed built area would be as it stands right now with the current proposal. It's actually a decrease of 5% in the built area with the removal of that rear parking area and the porch extension. And that's due in large part to the fact that the existing gravel driveway on the north side of the lot is almost 900 square feet, and that's going away. We do count gravel when we are counting our built area calculations. It gets confused very frequently with impervious surface calculations, but it is really looking at what the original site was and what the alterations over time to that site have been. Planting beds aren't a part of it, but anything like gravel or pavers, steps, that sort of thing, pathways would be added in. So I could probably figure out what it would be to add the parking back in, but right now I don't know. I would reiterate that based on the conversation last month, when it was still a part of the application, that the committee's concerns were directed at the built mass.
Right. I think at this point, I'll turn to comments and discussion from members of the committee, questions for the staff or the applicant. And I think for this purpose, let's just talk about the building and those calculations, and then we'll come back and think about the parking piece of that and whether we can handle that with as a condition for staff to examine or let it be brought back to us separately and deal with what we got. So let's sever parking for the moment. Let's talk about everything else. Are there questions and comments from members of the committee? Janine McCullough, did you have your hand up?
I do have a question. I'm sorry, I didn't even raise my hand, but just knew I had a question. For Meg, this was just, I think, something that was maybe an error on the proposed south elevation. It shows upstairs towards the back in the second story. It shows cottage style windows, which I don't see anywhere else in the entire house. And I just, I think that might just be sort of maybe a drafting miscommunication. I just wanted to make sure I understood what those windows were. On sheet 8.5.
What page?
All right, Meg, if you can speak up and talk to windows.
It's 8.5, Nick. Page 8.5.
I don't know what it looks like. I have, there should not be any cottage windows. All of the windows are full light,
Yep.
1/1 sash. And
Okay, that's what I expected.
All right, thanks, Meg. We can take care of that.
Okay.
All right, John Reese, you had a question?
Meg, a couple of things, a couple of comments. One, thank you very much for the diagram. We didn't have it in our packet, but I appreciate very much the showing the elevations of what you how you've reduced it versus what you have now. That was very, very informative. I wish more folks would do something like that. That was very helpful. And I do want to make one similar comment when you commented about apparently you're not able to add additions onto historic properties. I want to just tweak that a little bit. You are in this scenario, it is the site conditions and the specific building mass that you're dealing with here, not a general statement which you made. I just want to make that very clear. I also want to ask the question. It's shown here in S1, if you'll look at that, please, on your side. And you're showing a 3-foot separate or a 3-foot indentation from one addition to the next. But it is crossing the setback line. I'm wondering why and why you can't get that to push back and stay within the setbacks. Can you explain that a little bit better?
Okay, that is where the original first floor, it is referred to as an addition. I believe it was an original. So
but Meg, just a second. The dotted line is, as I understand, where the original is. The crosshatched
No, that's
area.
what the existing is. That is not where the original is. And the reason that the reason this was that little part that is got a dotted line, that was added in, I think, the 1960s when this became multifamily.
I understand that, Meg. I understand that. I'm talking about the double crosshatch area. That's new.
Right.
That extends further west than the original dotted line of the original building. That section extends past.
Because it extends further.
Yes, it extends beyond the setback is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, if you will remember 2 meetings ago when I had an offset to create that to fit in the setback, I was told to make that a single plane and not to honor that setback. And
if I'm not, I'm going to beg to differ you on that front, because I think what the point that we were trying to make was that you could still, and you can still do that in this scenario, but I don't understand why you have to go outside that one setback to make this happen, because based on the elevations and the from both the back and the side, I don't understand why you have to exceed the setback, because it's just making the building a little bit, that addition, just setting it back within the setback line. It doesn't change anything that you're doing from a design standpoint on the roof lines or anything like that. I think you've solved all that quite nicely.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but what I am telling you and what, maybe I misunderstood this.
No, Tanya Tully here. Meg, Tanya here. You are correct. Your interpretation is correct. They may not remember, but that is what they told you at the first meeting.
Yeah, Tanya, I can jump in. So just to try to simplify this and make it clear right now, what we should be focusing on is the existing property and the proposed application, and not considering, although, you know, the work is to get this to where you guys are going to feel that this is not a significant increase in built mass. But we are supposed to be considering what the current proposal is rather than previous iterations of the proposal. The reason that the wall is where it is, that the applicant has stated, is that that was where the original location of the south wall was before it was removed and bumped out about 3 feet. And that's the dotted line that you see on S1 for the existing footprint. She is pushing it back 3 feet to where the original wall was, and that's visible in the photographs with the change in the roof structure at the rear for that last 3 feet. And that's where it was in the first iteration of the application. She was told to go into the setback to better center up the rear addition for the second meeting, so that's what she did, and then received feedback on not going into the setback, so she's now moved it back to the original proposed location, which is in line with the original wall of what may be an original piece of the house or an early addition. And then proceeding further back along that side setback line, the deck and any other pieces of the new addition do not exceed further into the side setback from that original location. I hope that's hopefully.
What I want to step in and say is that as we go back and forth here, we've got to be careful to speak one at a time so that the WebEx can handle it, and so that the TV viewer can tell who is saying what. And so I'll try to guide that, but we're going to have to let each person finish before the next one speaks. So thanks for that. So are there further questions or discussion? So as I get it, what Aaron has said is that we're supposed to be looking at the current package. And even though we have been through this enough times that we are sort of rationalizing or explaining to ourselves how we got to here based on stuff that is really no longer on the table. But anyway, so we should be looking at the current package and the current calculations which Meg and staff have put together for us. Are there questions, further questions of the applicant or the staff from members of the committee? Do y'all have what you need before I close the public hearing for discussion? Janine says she's got what she needs. The rest of you okay? All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're going to turn to discussion internally, and so I will. Who would like to, who has something to say at this point as we discuss where we are on it? All right, Janine, you can go first, and then I'll follow with my own thoughts if nobody else has any.
All right, well, oh, sorry, there sounds like feedback. I do think that where we landed here was a good response to the concerns we had with the overall scale of the addition. And I was trying to find in the Boylan Heights character essay, there is a nice section that talks about just that prominence of Boylan Street and the significance of the properties on that. And when I look at the comparisons of the built mass throughout the neighborhood, I do feel like this is in that context. And it's, to me, I think that this fits in that context when we look at those comps, particularly because I see this as one of the stately homes on Boylan, Avenue itself. So that, and then I do think taking that porch, from what I understand, it's been reduced in width back to the original size of it, which I think is a very nice move.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I would chime in that at this point, I'm pretty comfortable with how this is working, and would note that a lot of good work has happened. There may have been a lot of anguish along with it, but there's been good work done. And like some other applications we've had, I think we end up with a good outcome with effort from all and sundry. Are there comments from the rest of you? Ian, you got anything to say?
Nothing more than what's already been said. I agree with Janine.
Okay, thank you for that. John Reese, anything?
Again, I just want to reiterate how nice it was to see the difference in those drawings, how you explained where you were versus where you are. And I must say that I know you've been through hell, Meg, on this, because you've been through iteration after iteration, but it's good. it's a much better solution massing wise than what I've ever seen before. Very nice.
Okay, anything, Travis, you got anything to add, or are y'all ready for a motion or what?
I'm fine.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Who would like to try a motion on this matter? Y'all want me to call on somebody? I will,
Well, Nick, before you move into the motions, I just wanted to remind the committee that the applicant has also asked about the rear parking area. I don't know if you can address that in the motions or if you want to discuss that further now.
all right, thanks. Okay, before we call on a motion on the proposal, we'll talk about what the impact of the parking would be. And it seems to me that we have to decide, are we going to leave that because we don't have the precision in it, even though we know that it appears to have been intended to have a room for 2 cars back there and a winding walk to the deck. We want to leave that for, assume that it's going to be, and assume that that's not going to change the calculations in a way that you would find unapprovable. If y'all want to proceed in that way, in that direction, then we can condition it and let staff approve the final dimensions of that of the pad and the walkway. What are your thoughts, Janine? I see you nodding. What are your comments?
I guess my comments are, and I don't have the chart right now at my fingertips that we just looked at, but we were significantly reducing, it seemed, wasn't it, double digits on the built area, not a built mass. And so adding a little bit back to me seems like there's probably a happy place you can land. I just certainly think somebody has to kind of quantify that before it can be approved, but that doesn't seem to be, doesn't seem like that's going to be beyond what we would find compatible.
Sorry. Yes, when you take off the old driveway that rambled across the yard, and you take off all the dark shadow stuff that showed on these drawings, then that actually resulted in a reduction. And then if you add back a parking pad for 2 vehicles, you've taken back some of that, but you aren't going to be very far ahead of what it used to be anyway. Would be my thought. All right, if y'all are okay with that, and I see heads nodding, I'm going to call on Ian Dunn to try a motion on this based on staff comments and all that we've heard in our in the hearing today.
I'll do my best. I'm not as familiar with this one as most of you are. Let's see here. Based upon the evidence that has been presented in the application during the evidentiary hearing, the committee finds that constructing a rear 1 and 2-story rear additions and removing additions is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines section 3.2.1, 0.2, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 10, 11. And the proposed new built area and mass of the site is not incongruous according to guidelines 1.3.8, 3.2.11, 3.2.12, and the following suggested facts 1 through 3, 4. Sorry, scratch that. 1 through 12. Nope.
I think you mean 17.
Probably, I kind of got lost here. Got it. Altering siding, altering windows, altering front doors surround, altering front porch columns, altering roofing, and changing exterior paint colors is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines section 2.1.1, 2.1.3, 0.4, 0.7, 0.10, 2.3.5, 2.4.3, 0.5, 2.5.1, 2.7.1, 2.7.2, 0.4, 2.7.11, 2.8.1, 2.8.6, 0.9, 0.10, and the following suggested facts 1 through 14. Constructing a rear deck and removing a driveway is not incongruous according to guidelines section 1.3.2.8.9, 1.5.5, 0.6.9, 3.1.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, and the following suggested facts 1 through 8. Installing lighting is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines section 1.7.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.9, 10. However, excessive landscape lighting may be incongruous according to guidelines 1.5.11, 1.7.11. And the following suggested facts 1 through 2, 1 through 2, yes.
Is there a second to the motion? All right, Janine McCullough seconds the motion now for discussion. What about we add sub number 9 under C with respect to the driveway, and add that in the hearing the applicant requested the proposal be considered with a parking area in the rear adequate for 2 vehicles and a walkway to the deck. And we add it that way, then we can add the condition in the order itself for staff to work out that detail. Okay, any discussion on the motion as amended? If
Nick,
not,
I've got one thing I wanted to also add.
Okay,
Essentially, looking at the letter in the applicant, on their letter, section 2.4, it says paint colors to be determined. Should, in the section on siding and the section on doors and windows, actually under porch, B, fact 14, mentions applicant proposes painting the house. In addition, a paint schedule and physical paint samples were not provided. Should we change that to say they will be provided?
And when we get to the next motion, I think that paint schedule and physical paint samples, et cetera, is in there as a condition, number 7F. So maybe we get the staff can tend to that.
Then I withdraw that amendment.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Raise your right hand. Okay. The motion carries unanimously. And let's have a follow-up motion. Ian, you should let me. committee approve the issuance of a COA with the following conditions.
I move the committee approve the COA with the following conditions, 1 through 7, with the added conditions concerning the driveway and paint samples.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? All right, John Reed seconds that motion. And so for purposes of the minutes, then we'd have a sub 8 under there that a parking area adequate for 2 vehicles and a walkway to the back deck be that the details be worked out with staff. Okay, so we got the motion in the second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, raise your hand. All right, that motion carries. And congratulations, Meg. You will not have to look at us next month, and you will be able to work the rest of this out with staff. And we thank you for your patience and your redrafting and second and third effort. Thank you for that. Okay, folks, the next matter and the last one for today is 424 South Person Street in Prince Hall Historic District, what I loosely refer to as the barbershop, and that is COA 193-2020, and David Mang, Aaron Morton. At this point, I want to administer the oath to you, and so I ask, do you and each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter being heard will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say, I do. Aaron Morton?
I do.
David Mang?
I do.
All right, thank you. And now, Aaron, will you explain this proposal to us?
This is case COA 193-2020 for 424 South Person Street in the Prince Hall Historic District. This is an after-the-fact application for the work request is to alter front doors, alter windows, remove signs, install new light fixture, change exterior paint color, and install HVAC unit. Next. Oh, and as a reminder, sorry, Tanya, on the map there, this is a contiguous building with 2 separate addresses. So we're just looking at the northern half of the building. Next. So here's a photo of 424 South Person from South Person Street. Right about where that tree is centered up is the property line. So we're looking at everything to the right. Next. And this is a photograph of the current condition of the building. Next. With some additional detail photographs provided by the applicant. Next. Next, still front facade there. And this is the rear of the building. Next. And the portion of the rear that is 424 South Person. Next. And the existing condition, current condition of the building, of the rear of the building, the west wall. Next. Staff suggestion is to discuss the following: the significance of the large metal sign on the front facade and the congruity of the proposed rear window configuration. Should the committee choose to render a decision, staff suggests that the committee approve the application with conditions. Next. Oh, and that's all.
All right, thank you for that. And so, Mr. Mang, we'd love to hear from you, and with you understanding that what happens to be out there right now is, for our purposes today, simply illustrative of what might be done if this application were to be approved. But please go ahead and talk to us about it, and particularly address the concerns of staff with regard to the sign the rear windows and other issues they tagged?
Yes, sir. So the sign, I can start there. That we had intended to preserve. And unfortunately, when we had our painter out there painting, he thought he was being helpful and disposed of it. And there's nothing, I mean, we'd love to get it out of the landfill, but it's just, he thought he was being helpful. We should have been more clear, save that thing, and he didn't. And so I would also think that it's a bit of a moot point because the COA committee has already approved a new sign for the tenant. And so I don't know how the new sign can be approved, but you want us to preserve the old sign. That's my position.
You go ahead and walk through the rest of your comments, and we'll.
Yeah. So the rear windows, they are, we installed those because there was water penetration coming in from the rear. I mean, you can see from the previous windows, they were rotted out. And so we did go ahead and replace those, thinking that you can't see it from either street view. It's the rear of the building's lot line to lot line. We didn't necessarily think, we used the proper windows up front. We did a minor work COA for that, and we just didn't realize that the rear facade that you can't see from a street really impacted the historic nature of the building. And so we went ahead and installed what we thought was appropriate. And I would point to, both buildings across Cabarrus and Person Street that also have vinyl windows with no divided lights or anything like that. And so we just, ignorantly thought we could just put what windows we wanted on the rear facade while doing what we thought the RHDC wanted for the front facade of the building and preserve that as best we could.
All right, I'm going to turn to staff in a minute, but Mr. Mang, what about the light fixture on the front?
I think we're happy to install whatever RHDC wants us to put up. I think they had approved a kind of like a can light that, kind of like a farmhouse light, but we're impartial. We'll put up whatever RHDC wants.
All right, thank you for that. Aaron, I want to come back to you, Aaron, and ask you to kind of walk through with us what has already been done, what has already been approved as a minor work on the front or back or side of this building. I got confused.
Thanks, Nick. This is Aaron. It's the original minor work COA the applicant is referencing is COA 100/2019. And that is still a pending application that did not receive final approval. We brought this to your attention when we were reviewing a separate minor work COA for 426 South Person, which is the attached address. So we've been in communication with the applicant since identifying that to bring it to the committee. The 2 points that we are focused on is the committee's interpretation of whether the large metal sign in the existing photographs provided is considered character defining and should be replaced, and whether the rear window configuration is appropriate to the era of the building, which is circa 1940s building. The period of significance for the district stretches 1960. And to confirm the applicant's statement, we did have a previous minor work for this address earlier this year where we approved a painted sign for the tenant, which is another traditionally approved sign type for the era of the building.
All right, thank you. Now, Janine McCall, if you have questions.
Can I ask a question of the applicant right now?
Yeah, sure. I just thought we'd better clarify that before we start.
Sure, I appreciate that. Well, just to the point of minor works that Aaron was speaking to being approved, when I was at the site, I noticed that there was a painted sign, and I'm just clarifying that that painted sign is what the applicant can speak to this, but confirm that that was what was approved with the minor works?
That's my understanding, that the tenant actually applied for that one.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Members of the committee? John Reese.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be obtuse. I'm not following what was approved in the, is there a picture of what was approved in the mine? I mean, I've driven by this a lot. I just haven't gone by recently. I'm not quite sure what I understand.
It's just a painted black and white Reverie sign above the doors.
I think what we'll do to be sure everybody's on board is to ask staff to put that photo back up of the front face. I'm sorry, Janine, what were you?
I'll make the point, when I saw the photo staff just showed, that was taken before I went by the building several days ago, and the painted sign is new to the photo. You won't see it in the photo.
That's what I was confused about, was I'm not quite sure where we are based on what I heard from the applicant and what I heard from staff.
Well, let me suggest that approach it this way, John. Since the photo of whatever the tenant got approved is not, we don't have that anyway. And we wouldn't need it because that's approved and out of the way, and we don't need to worry about it. So all we need to do is to look at what used to be there and look at the picture that we did see of this after the fact work that is being sought for approval now. So we look at that, which had the Coca-Cola sign and has the light hanging over the doorway and the like. Does that make it simpler, John?
Well, I'm still confused because I just heard staff say that a painted sign on the building is congruous with the history of that type. So it muddies the water for me based on how important this metal sign is appropriate based on the history of the building.
Tanya here. I'm going to ask Aaron to clarify, but it's my recollection that the painted sign was approved before we realized that the metal sign had been removed. We did and again, correct me, Aaron, if I'm remembering incorrectly, but we did let the tenant know that this sign COA was going to happen and that she might have to undo work she did pending the results of this hearing.
Tanya, this is Erin. That's my recollection as well. I can go back and double check my inbox and confirm it for you all while the discussion is ongoing. But to reiterate Nick's point, it's a separate application either way. It is an appropriate sign for the building, but the question here is if the original sign that was removed without approval is considered a character defining feature that would not receive approval to be removed. And that's up for you all to
All right,
discuss.
thank you. I'm going to turn and call on Ian Dunn.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Were you ever able to discern what those ghost letters said on the sign?
I think they said Hills Barbershop.
Not the letters that you could see, but the letters that were painted over.
No, I don't know what was before Hills Barbershop.
All right.
He was there for 35 years. That.
Yeah, I did a lot of research trying to find pictures of that building that predated 1960.
Right.
Or any use of that building, and I could find absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But it was a shoe shop before it was a barber shop. It was a barber shop under another proprietor before Hills for a long time. And in my opinion, somewhat educated, but I have no proof of this. That metal sign postdates the period of significance anyway. But I have no proof of that.
All right, thank you for that. Further discussion or question, John Reese?
Question of the applicant. What was that sign that the painter threw away? What was it made? Was it metal? Was
It was metal.
Like,
That's right. I think it was metal.
do you know what type of metal?
Oh, I don't.
Okay. When I look at the detail of it, it's got a little curved back to it. I mean, it looked like I'm so sorry it got tossed out because it was a sweet little sign.
Yeah, we like the Coca-Cola one too. We were bummed.
Yeah, I hear you. Also, in relationship to the windows in the back, this is a 0 lot line building, isn't it?
More or less. There's about 6 inches on the back of the building.
And the lot to the back of you has the ability to abut the back of your building, because we've had this discussion with a similar application for the building that's adjacent right to yours. There's another buyer could buy the lot behind you where these windows are and basically render this whole thing moot because those windows would be gone.
Correct.
All right, are there further questions or comments? I guess I'd say that we need to deal with what the windows need to be until and unless a neighbor does something. We can't assume that would in fact ever happen. All right, are there other questions? So we need to find out, do any of you have any questions of staff or of the applicant? I see none. Good. Mr. Mang, is there anything else you want to say before I close the public hearing? And after that, you won't be speaking, we'll be talking internally.
No, sir, I'm good.
All right, Aaron Martin, anything else?
Just to remind the committee that you review the building in the round. So I'm not sure if that's in the staff report or not, but it's not about what you can see from the street. It's about the full building.
Yeah, and if I might jump in here for a second, and I heard the applicant. It seems like the applicant seems to be quite true to trying to do the right thing, and this is a scenario where, just to help the applicant understand, there are different conditions for different districts. For example, the district that I live in Glenwood, Brooklyn, is street face. Things that happen on the very back. If your building were in our district, your windows in this discussion would not be as big of a deal as they are because of the district. It is because of the district that you're in. So I can understand sometimes those things can become confusing. And so I feel for you. And I also want to just say, I understand that you're trying to do the right thing here, but do understand your district is not universal across all districts.
Yeah, okay. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn to internal discussion and to consideration of what do we want to do with it. And I think maybe the first thing is, are you all content with the notion that the Coca-Cola sign is after the period of significance? If that's the case, then it changes the question of what we ought to do about it. In that sense, it doesn't really matter. But if it's before the period of significance, then we have to consider whether it's character defining on this particular building. And of course, for many, many years, lots of people were able to get a free sign from Coca-Cola if it would have Coca-Cola's logo on it, whether you had any Coca-Colas inside the place of business or not. And so there were many people doing that, and this may have been one of them. Are there other comments and discussion from members of the committee? John Reed?
I just had a question internally
I'm sorry,
about
Travis.
the windows. For the windows, is it typical if they are clad in aluminum for the aluminum to remain unpainted, or is it usually painted to match the wood of the window?
Well, that's for us to, it seems to me that those metal seals are problematic, and the vinyl windows are maybe can be talked about separately. What we
If
want
you don't
to do
mind,
Yeah.
I'll jump in to answer your question. What you see in the metal sill there is basically what we call brake metal. It is not a stainless steel. It can be painted, but it's not going to stick. When you talk about aluminum clad windows, yes, they can be painted, but they usually have to apply a kind of like a vinegar solution or something like that. And again, it's not a finish that is forever. It is going to have to be maintained. But if the windows as aluminum clad are left alone, that finish is in perpetuity.
Okay, any comments, discussions, Janine McCullough?
Back to the signage. So there's two signs, and we're talking about the Coca-Cola sign in addition to the company name sign. And I guess I want to just be clear, are we all in agreement that the name, the Hill Barbershop, we just can't determine whether that was from a period of significance? Is that why we're only kind of considering the Coca-Cola sign?
No, I'm just trying to guide the discussion and relying on what Ian's comment was as well.
Well, my comment about the signage is I think that was a really very nice sign that seemed like something that was very unfortunate that it got discarded. And I know we're not supposed to be considering this on the merits of what has been done, but we can't bring that back. And I don't know that it seems like replicating that and pretending it's original feels right to me. So I feel like we're moving on from that sign anyway. And I guess the Coca-Cola sign we don't have up there right now, and I guess I don't know exactly where that went. Maybe somebody can share with me, maybe I missed that.
Well, if you look at that, the Coca-Cola sign was at the peak of the roof.
I know it used to be there and it's not there anymore, Nick, so I'm just trying to determine, has that been discarded with the other sign as well? Is that what we heard?
If we want to know, we can reopen and find out if that one is also gone. Without objection, I'll reopen the public hearing and ask Mr. Mang. So the Hills Barbershop sign is gone. And what about the Coca-Cola sign, Mr. Mang?
They were both thrown out at the same time.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I will close the public hearing and go back to internal discussion. On the one hand, I'm not disputing what the applicant says about how the signs got gone, but I am concerned about opening the door to somebody telling the painter, personally, I wish those things were gone, but I can't do that right now or whatever, and we end up backing into situations where stuff gets missing, and I don't have any particular desire to punish Mr. Mang about this, but I am concerned about how we're supposed to protect historic fabric under any of these circumstances, whether it's this one or something else. Mr. Reese, you got comments?
My question is to Ian. Did you say, were you referring to the Coca-Cola sign, or were you referring to the barbershop sign when you said that you didn't find any evidence, or you had a kind of guesstimate, or thought that this was post 1960.
I was referring to the metal sign under the Coca-Cola sign.
That can, in that scenario, you know, that kind of has a caveat for me, because I get to where you're coming from, Nick, and I agree with you 100%. And if this sign were of such understanding that it was definitely there prior to 1960, I would be very much strongly advocating for having it replaced. But with that issue in doubt, it makes me question whether that is an appropriate measure or not.
No, I totally agree. My sense of it is when I look at the Coca-Cola sign, you know, being the oldest one on this TV screen, on this screen, I think that's later. I don't think that's what they look like. So the Coca-Cola sign, it seems to me more recent. And the other one, I would defer to Ian's suspicions about it, because he does a lot more research on these various things than I do. And but I agree with you all. If they're both after 1960, then they're outside the period of significance, and that for today's purposes takes us off the horns of a dilemma. So with that, are there other comments or discussion about what to do here? Anything else? Okay, then Janine McCullough.
Well, we haven't mentioned the door hardware, which I think feels very incongruous with the historic building neighborhood. So I would want to see that changed out in addition to the light fixture. And I think maybe staff can comment to this, but I think staff made a note as well that the sort of full light door is also not what we expect to find in this installation. Did I see that in the report?
Yeah, I think so. And I can tell you my thought on it is to essentially give them a pass on the signs, but go with staff on everything else to cut to the chase. And so it seems to me the windows in the back are problematical. The light is problematical. The doors are problematical. But if our own research and recollection suggests that the signage is outside the period of significance, then we not chase that. But that again, this is discussion, and I'm just one voice. Janine McCullough.
I agree with what you've said there, Nick, with all those rules.
Comments from the rest of you? Nobody has any. Janine McCullough, if you want to try a motion.
Sure, I do. All right, I move that based on the information and evidence presented in this application and during the evidentiary hearing, that the committee finds that the proposed work of altering the front doors and altering the windows is incongruous in according to guidelines sections 2.7.1.2.13.14 and the I don't think I need to say that. And the front door hardware is incongruous according to guidelines sections 2.7.7 and the following suggested facts 1 through 4. I'm sorry.
1 through 15. Yeah. And so what we're finding is that the rear windows are incongruous, and the front door hardware is incongruous.
And was it with doors as well?
Yeah, okay.
And the doors, okay.
All right.
All right. I'm sorry, here's the door. I'm sorry. And no, that was all the door. Okay, we got the door. So also that the removal of signs, the removal of signs from the period of historical significance is, well, the removal of signs that were not confirmed to be from the period of historical significance is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines section 1.8.1. I don't know that I need to say the second part of that. And the following suggested facts 1 through 7. And that installing a new light fixture, installing an HVAC unit, and changing the exterior paint color is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 1.7.1.3.4.9, 2.4.1, 0.3, 0.4.5. However, installing a light fixture that is incompatible with the historical character of the building is incongruous according to guidelines section 1.7.10 and the following suggested facts 1 through 4.
Is there a second to that motion? Ian Dunn seconds the motion. Now for discussion. Is there any discussion? Any adjustments need to be made to the findings of fact? Okay, hearing none, you prepared to vote? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Raise your right hand. All hands are up. I vote aye, and the motion carries. Do you have a follow-up motion?
I do. I move that the certificate of appropriateness be approved with the following conditions. 1 and 2 and 4. And we'll have to rewrite 3. Or do
I think we can delete 3.
delete 3, okay. All right, 1, 2, and 4, and delete 3.
Is there a second to that motion? John Reed seconds the motion.
This is Aaron. Nick, if I could jump in with
I was going to ask Aaron, are you content with us just deleting 3, or what? Do you have a thought on that?
Yes, I think that's the right way to handle that. I just wanted to point out that the doors themselves, the staff report was not written to suggest that those were atypical to my knowledge, but the hardware is not included in the conditions currently.
Okay. And so my comments on those, with those facts would be consistent with what you just said, Aaron, I think.
All right, so what we would need to do is where we took out 3, we put in a new 3 saying that hardware selected for the doors be reviewed and approved by staff. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Everybody got that? Everybody understand the motion? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your hand. All right, the motion carries. That unanimously. I vote aye as well, and that takes care of it. Okay. So Mr. Mang, you've got your marching orders and you're done with us. You'll just sort a few of these things out with staff and get on with your project. And so we appreciate you coming. All right, members of the committee, we have a bunch of deferred applications that we are not going to go into tonight. And but when we had the retreat the other night, we talked about something that, since we were hoping this was a short meeting, we might talk about before we left here, but I frankly don't recall what it was right now, and I'm not saying we have to if y'all are whipped.
Nick, Tanya here.
Yeah.
I think the idea was to talk about a post-mortem idea, but before you go that, I do have a demolition by neglect item I would like to bring up that was on the agenda. It's for, is that all right?
Sorry. Ray and I are conflicting with each other. I'm getting
Okay.
Mute me as fast as I'm unmuting, but, so no, I didn't see anything about a demolition by neglect on the agenda, but let's hear about it.
Yeah, it was added. So a demolition by neglect request was put in by the Society for the Preservation of Historic Oakwood for 419 North Person Street in the Blunt Street HOD. And I brought it to y'all because it is typically the COA committee's responsibility to do the review and assessment on whether or not you believe the property is in fact undergoing demolition by neglect. Just a real quick process is neighborhood notices a property that may be undergoing demo by neglect. They send a letter to the property owner. They have to give them at least 6 months. And then if there's not, if there's not progress or they don't hear back, then they can then reach out to RHDC to make that to proceed. So all I'm asking for tonight are 2 volunteers, and we can provide the details on what specifically you're looking at, but 2 volunteers to go out to the property, do an external assessment against the 12 criteria, things like whether it's unpainted, holes in the roof, holes in the siding, list of things, and then we would then help you pull a report together that would be taken to the business meeting whenever you had that available.
All right. I don't mind doing it. I've done it before. I remember doing it one other time on another property. So I think I got a grasp of what we probably got to do. Take a bunch of pictures of various things.
Right.
So we need 2 of us so we can look at it and try to make a list and try to get the pictures.
Right. I saw John.
So John, you want to be the volunteer? It doesn't, and if one of the rest of you rather do it instead of me, I'm not begging, but I just knew I'd done it before. So, okay, well, John, you and I will tend to it. Tanya, can you tell me which one is 419?
Here, I'll show it real quick. The map.
Okay, is it in the row of houses that were all moved?
Yes. That's where it says 224. That's the Murphy School.
Yeah.
So it's the one just behind Murphy School.
No, I know the one. It looks pretty bad.
So the owners have filed a certificate of appropriateness for a minor work just this past week, I do believe. Colette will jump in if I got that wrong.
You're correct. It was approved on Tuesday.
Okay, so we still have to go through the process, but just to let you know. All right, I will send you the information on, what you're supposed to look at and a sample report.
Yes, if you will, and let us know what the minor work covered, since we might have major problems and only a minor work application.
Okay.
And so I'd like to see what it was that if they're just talking about slapping some paint on and it's not going to do anything about the rot and the rest of it, then we probably still got a problem. So
we'll provide that as well.
I think I know the house. Does Matthew live right along there somewhere?
Yes, he's on the corner.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we'll coordinate on that. Ian, you get ready to say something?
The owner of the property contacted me this week asking for pictures of the house, and he gave me the impression that they were going to start some work on it pretty soon, like immediately. So as soon as they can. So.
And this is Aaron, just for further context on the minor work. We've been emailing with him this week, and Ian, he mentioned his communications with you. So we've alerted him that the minor work is approved. I won't be sending him the placard until I'm in the office tomorrow, but it'll be up on the website by the end of the day tomorrow. So if you all want to go take a gander at the minor work, it'll be there.
I'll send it right to you, Nick and John. You don't have to go look for it.
and figure out we'll figure out when we can go. Okay, but everybody doesn't have to sit in on that, but we'll get it tended to. And so for that purpose, Tanya, now the general idea is that we should generate this and get it so we could then go to the business meeting with it.
Right, right. When you get a chance, if it happens to come up February, that may be tight, then it would come to March, just whatever works with your schedules.
Yeah, that meeting is February 16th. So.
Right,
okay.
right.
Well, we'll see what we can do. Okay, well, listen, thanks everybody. What about the post-mortem? What did y'all think? Did you feel, and staff step in as well, did you feel like that we did not treat staff fairly with regard to the sign on Boylan because we didn't really have the stuff? That was kind of tricky, but I just thought we could probably, if it's a sign, we ought to be able to tell what we thought pretty well and just move on, even though the motion necessarily was a little bit clumsy without a staff report.
Tanya here. I thought y'all did really well making that up on the fly. I still disagree and think you should have seen it, but y'all know what you're doing.
Well, I don't know that we know what we're doing, but we're doing it. So, okay. Anything else from anybody? All right, John.
Is the case for the house on Hinsdale still pending, or is that a scenario where we can't discuss that because it's current?
You should not. We cannot discuss it because it may come back as a COA, but we're on it.
All right, folks. Good seeing your faces. One of these years we'll be able to see each other in person. In the meantime, however, this meeting is adjourned. See y'all later.
Night, everybody. Thank you.
Night.